All right. Welcome to Crypto Cafe. My name is Philip Wiszowaty. I'm the community manager for EOS Detroit. Thank you for coming. It's my pleasure to share some knowledge with you about EOS and what we've been working on. If you want to switch the slide. So it all started with this company, block.one. It's led by the Chief Technology Officer, Dan Larimer. So Dan Larimer has, he's like a crypto OG. He's got two very successful projects prior to EOS. One of them was BitShares, one of them was Steem. And Steem is really cool because it's like a social media microblogging platform where if you earn likes, you get paid Steem tokens. So pretty new concept that was never done before. So he took some things he learned from those two previous projects, which are still thriving, very good projects. They're actually used more than Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I'll show you that in a future slide. So block.one, they had the biggest initial coin offering. A couple years ago, there was that was like the big thing for projects, crypto projects, to have an initial coin offering, raise a bunch of money, and block.one had the biggest one. They raised $4 billion with a B. So, very interesting project. If you want to go to the next slide. So, but what they didn't launch the network themselves. The block producers, the community, launched the network back on June 3rd, 2018. So, a couple days prior to this, block.one released the code for EOSIO. And EOS was a fork of that EOSIO code. So this was a really exciting day for us. I know it was really hectic. We were all working under one roof, sleepless nights for a couple of nights leading up to this day. It was pretty cool. And then we all went to San Francisco like immediately after actually we were in San Francisco for the launch with a bunch of other community members from throughout the world. So it was really cool. So here's what I was talking about earlier. This is how many transactions are actually happening on these blockchains. So you would think Bitcoin's for sure number one. Everyone's heard of Bitcoin. It's not. Bitcoin is number 7. So this is how many daily transactions are happening. And all they really are is just token transfers. People sending each other money, which isn't even that great because Bitcoin takes 20 minutes to confirm. There's transaction fees. So Steem was Dan Larimer's previous project, and so was BitShares. So it looks like Ethereum is being used more than Steem currently. And this website is blocktivity.info. What's interesting is that EOS, Tron, BitShares, Steem, and Wax, so several of them, they all use a different consensus algorithm. Bitcoin and Ethereum, they use proof of work. And these ones all use another one called delegated proof of stake. Slightly different. The main point is that it's more scalable. Bitcoin and Ethereum, they get backed up. The networks get clogged. The transactions slow down. Fees go up. You don't have these sorts of problems with delegated proof of stake blockchains. Next slide. So EOS is fast. It's got half-second block times. 0 transaction fees, scalable using delegated proof of stake. It's energy efficient. It doesn't use a ton of electricity the way that Bitcoin and Ethereum do. It's carbon neutral, I think they call it. It's developer friendly. It's if you build on Ethereum, you have to learn Solidity, which is a very tough coding language that you have to learn. But with EOS, it works with C++, so it's the most common programming language in the world. You can write smart contracts using C++. And it's open source. So that's a big theme in these communities is that we promote open source because then anyone can come and fork your code and launch a competing project, and ultimately it leads to better service and all around a better system. So who is EOS Detroit? Yes?
What's open source?
Sure, good question. Open source means, so basically you can either be your code can be open source or closed source. If it's closed source, that means you keep your code private, you don't share it with anybody. nobody can copy it and just do it better. You kind of just have the rights to your code, but that doesn't really promote competition. So open source invites competition, which ultimately leads to better service. This is our important statement for us. EOS Detroit is a community-focused startup aiming to unite people using technology to bolster local financial resilience, improve quality of life, and create economic systems that put people first. And what we're trying to do is use these new systems to introduce them to our city and introduce people to these new economies. Because ultimately, if you use these apps, you get fairer treatment. They're self-governed apps ultimately. So you don't have a big company trying to squeeze you out. You're actually, as a user, you're providing value to some of these platforms as a user, and you get paid. You can earn tokens, cryptocurrency, from using a lot of these apps. So this is what we're doing. EOS Detroit is kind of representing Detroit on a global scale right now. Ultimately, these are all block producer companies similar to us. And all of us have servers set up to host the EOS network. And we're voted in by token holders. So you can see the far number on the right. That's how many EOS tokens are voting for us, which is currently a little under $300 million. So we have some global support, and a lot of these block producers are not from the United States. It's primarily focused in Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, Singapore. So China's really embracing blockchain a lot faster than we are in the United States, so that's why we see this. We have a small event over there. The event would have 500 or 1,000 people. It's just booming way faster over there. So, but we're trying to represent Detroit. We're doing our best. We're currently in 74th place. There's 90 positions currently that are actually getting paid. So we're in there. We're fighting. So why EOS? So ultimately, what EOS is it's an operating system. You can think of even the Bitcoin network as kind of just being the operating system, and Bitcoin is just the first app. So these are operating systems where you can create new apps that are kind of self-governed and user-owned. And what it does is it realigns incentives between customers, employees, and stakeholders. So in a traditional circle economy, you have the customer who's just trying to get the best price for a product or service. You have the employee who's just trying to just get paid. And you have the stakeholder who's trying to kind of like squeeze the customer and employee and extract as much value as you can. So that's why I put the end of extraction economies, because every system we have today, it's just like if you look at Uber, for example, they're just trying to squeeze profits out of the interactions between the driver and the passenger. And with EOS, you can change that, and you can create a circle. Yes?
What's the difference between EOSIO and EOS?
Sure, good question. So EOSIO is the initial code, and EOS it forked that code and created a network. So what you also see is several other instances of the EOSIO code that have the same capabilities, but they don't share a state history. So it's a brand new version of EOS. Sure, and a lot of them have like different governance structures, or like Warbly, for example, has anti-money laundering and know your customer built in at the protocol layer. So there's differentiating features of each of these chains, and there will be a lot more of them launching. Yes?
Yeah, on the first or second slide, you mentioned this organization. How is that like the CEO?
block.one?
Yeah, block.one.
Yeah, so block.one, they wrote the code for EOSIO, and they released it a couple of days before the global community launched it. And they don't have to be liable for something that someone else kind of launched with their code. So that's part of their involvement, but they also released all kinds of updates. So they release updates, and then the block producers, they test them out on test nets, and then it's the block producers that ultimately make the changes to the blockchain. So they're kind of there like on the sidelines, cheering, rooting us on and helping us out with code, pretty much. And also they have 10% of the total token supply. So they have, yes, yep. So, I'm sorry? block.one, the company block.one. Yeah, you can go to the website block.one. It's led by Dan Larimer. He had 2 previous projects that were very successful, and they also raised a multi-billion-dollar raise led by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was one of the founders of PayPal, and he was the first guy to write Mark Zuckerberg a check for Facebook. So he owns a large share of Facebook as well. So he's like all in on block.one.
So is he the one behind what Facebook is getting ready to launch in a couple of days?
I'll talk about that shortly. That's a Mark Zuckerberg project. They're actually, so Facebook is launching like this global coin. They've been hyping it up, and supposedly they're selling like 100 different servers that cost $10 million each to host. So it's very interesting. They're going to release supposedly a lot of details about it on Tuesday. I wish I could have told you guys about it, but it hasn't happened yet. But it's exciting, you know. Yeah.
Okay, and then another question I had is, how does, so in every city, how does EOS Detroit link to EOS in general?
Sure. So we are there's a couple hundred companies that have servers set up to host the network. And ultimately, the top 21 are the ones that are actively producing the blocks, and everyone else is on standby. So we're in 74th place. We are just on standby. You know, there's competition for votes between us and the top 21. So there's all kinds of competition of who can provide the best service to EOS and the best network infrastructure. So there's not every block producer has a city attached to them. There is EOS New York, and then there's EOS Detroit. There's one in Pittsburgh, but their name is Cypherglass. There's another one, EOS Tribe in the United States. And then there's other ones like EOS Venezuela and EOS Nairobi and EOS Beijing. But probably half and half have a city attached to them. We are probably one of, out of all the block producers, we are probably the most community focused within our own city. So there's other ones, like the ones that have a city, other ones that have a city attached to them, they're not in their city like throwing events all the time like we are. So this is the most exciting part of my talk is community self-governance. And what this is you can create these systems where the user, kind of what I was talking about earlier, that circle, where the customers can become kind of like shareholders. So this completely flips the system on its head, and I'll show you some examples of that. So here's just a bunch of, there's already like hundreds of apps that we know about, projects that are building on EOS. Everything from gaming to social media, voting platforms, identity, health. So this is the first example of what they're called decentralized autonomous communities. You can kind of think of it as like a digital co-op. And this is Eva. It works the same way that Uber works. It works the same way that Lyft works. It's a ride-sharing platform, and it's built on EOS. And they're currently piloting this in Montreal, Canada. And what's interesting is that you can remove the Uber middleman that's squeezing value out of the driver and the rider, because you can make the rider and the driver have stake ownership in the platform, and they can kind of, and there's a voting system built into it where anybody can submit worker proposals and or vote on any what city are we going to go into next, or what's the minimum car requirement that we're going to have. The drivers and the passengers actually get to vote on this themselves, and there's no middleman squeezing fees out of their interaction. So this is another one I'm really excited about. It's called EDNA, as he calls it. This is my buddy Greg. He's the founder of it. He's based in Wisconsin. So how many people have used either Ancestry.com or 23andMe.com, or you know somebody who's used it? So what you're doing is you're giving your DNA to these companies. And something I didn't know until I met Greg is that you pay them less than $100 to get this test done. The test actually costs closer to $700 or $800. So they take an immediate major loss on that transaction. But now they have your DNA. So now they can start hitting up all these medical research companies and selling it to get all kinds of tests done. They actually make an average, according to Greg, they make $70,000 off of each person that sends in their DNA. So if you Google them, you'll see they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Like they're really making that kind of money. So using EDNA, using EDNA and public key cryptography, you can own your own DNA and have the rights to it online. And then as a community, the community can then, as a DAC, a decentralized autonomous community, but they can then vote on, well, which medical research companies are we going to sell our data to? They're, of course, the users will get the money for their own DNA. So that's what Greg's building. I think it's incredible. It's one of my favorite projects on EOS. Emanate is another one really cool. It's a self-governing audio exchange platform where music creators can own the rights to their own music, and they can collaborate with other artists using smart collaborations and a smart contract. Some people might not know what a smart contract is. So a smart contract is basically, it's just like it sounds, like if we have a contract, like it says, I'm going to do something. If something, a normal contract, it works the same way, and it's basically if a certain set of inputs, or if this happens, then this is going to happen as a result. So it's just a contract in digital form. So these artists can collaborate using smart contracts to have ownership of their music and get paid in real time as it's being played. It's very similar to Spotify. And Emanate actually just launched their DAC. I just saw the article announcement this week. So that's really cool. They're electing custodians to represent this community. So it's like community voting themselves in, and they get to, no one's middlemaning them. And I was just in San Francisco talking to one of the founders, and what he told me is that the average musician who puts up music, he or she only gets 12% of the money that comes in from that. And what Emanate can do is provide 85% to the artist, and the other 15% gets redistributed to the stakeholders. And so in order to subscribe to this, you have to put in a certain amount of EMT tokens, just like a subscription, but you're not paying monthly. You can take your money back whenever you want to. But having that subscription, you're staking your tokens and you're earning dividends from profits of the platform as a user, which that doesn't exist today. So it's very innovative for the music industry. I'm very excited about this project. PixieOS. So PixieOS is a game built on the EOS blockchain. They will actually be here tomorrow. They're flying in from LA to present PixieOS, which I'm really excited about. And it does a couple different things. It has games. You can literally make money playing these games on your phone. So it's not a lot of money, but in certain parts of the world, it is a lot of money. So they're actually seeing thriving, booming, and happening in Venezuela. That's their primary customer base right now. And something that's going to lead into the next slide. So PixieOS was based off of a game called Pixel Master. And what Pixel Master was, so PixieOS has a canvas just like Pixel Master. So Pixel Master had a canvas, like a public canvas, that anybody could go paint on. And once you paint, you would, through public key cryptography, you would have secure ownership of that little pixel in the painting, in the public canvas. And if somebody came and painted over you, they would have to pay more than you paid, and you would get your money back and a profit. So it creates some people made like tens of thousands of dollars just playing this game and picking the right places to paint, knowing that someone's going to paint over them. So that leads into the next slide. Voice. So voice is probably the most hyped cryptocurrency app that I've experienced. I've been in blockchain since 2013, and this is the one I've been waiting on. So you can go to voice.com and you can sign up. They'll email you when it's ready. It hasn't launched yet, happening within the next couple of months. And the reason I say it relates to PixieOS is that you have this similar dynamic happening on voice. So what voice is it's just like Facebook, where people can write a post, and if you get likes, you get paid. You get cryptocurrency tokens just for getting likes. And if you drive conversation, so you post something that people want to comment on, right? People will have to pay for the real estate of the top comment, so they get more visibility from paying for it. And then someone can come in and take that comment from them, and they'll get their full investment back and a profit, because the next person has to pay 30% extra. So it's going to create this brand new economy online of just conversation, which doesn't exist. So I'm really excited about that. I think that element of being able to just like comment on stuff and make money from it, I think it's going to go viral very fast. Whether this is available in the United States is still in question, because there are some tight securities laws happening in the United States. But if it is not available, I think you'll still be able to use it and then kind of have like tokens reserved for you once regulation kind of clears up. But definitely sign up on voice.com for the beta version of this. It's going to be a very big app. They actually have, like, out of that $4 billion they raised, they are designating $150 million to the marketing for this. They haven't started marketing it yet because they haven't launched it yet, but it's coming very soon, and there's been a lot of anticipation and a lot of hype about this.
Did you say they raised $4 billion?
$4 billion, yep.
They're only spending hundreds of millions on marketing?
This is just one product, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, Rob, can you confirm, this is Rob, the CEO. I think CEO of EOS Detroit. You want to say what happened? Yeah, because they had like another private raise with Peter Thiel that was separate from the ICO, right? Can you answer that, Rob?
EOS tokens were sold for a year in a first Dutch auction, so unbounded amounts can be raised every day for a different tranche of tokens. That's how they raised so much, because the demand was so high.
Can you come on this end?
Sure.
You're fighting them.
I'll come up here with Phil. So, sure. I'll project my voice a little better too. So, they sold tokens for over a year to raise that $4 billion, and that was actually post-private investment. So, private investment funded the development of EOSIO. They just raised this war chest, and the whole idea was to make game theory too hard for whales, which are people with tons of money in cryptocurrency, to accumulate and corner the market, which is something hedge funds can do in traditional markets. So the idea was to make it too complicated for them to buy up a disproportionate amount, because going back to the block production part, the votes being distributed and stake being distributed is how the system is secure. You don't want any one actor able to make all the calls unilaterally, basically. So they raised money as a byproduct, booked it all as revenue, the $4 billion, put up $1 billion for VC partners, the other $3 billion sitting in Bitcoin and fiat. I think block.one has 140,000 Bitcoins and like a couple $1 billion. And they're probably using the other money that they already had just to fund day-to-day operations. So it's a war chest that they can use to back the protocol and fund development and grow and create really mature blockchain apps like Voice, of which you heard the number was like $100 or $200 million going into Voice, but that's one of a few products they want to launch. So really block.one became the fastest growing company in history that last year or 2 years ago. No one has raised that much money, and it's really unprecedented. So the idea, if you look at their executive committee, they actually stacked with lawyers and bank CEOs and all of this people to try to figure out how to manage so much money, and then also figure out how they can move the needle, because the laws in the states aren't very good for blockchain apps. Going back to what Phil said about Voice might not actually be able to pay out U.S. citizens legitimately.
Land on the free, right?
Yeah, so ideally they'll take some of that money, they'll help push the innovation here so that it doesn't go overseas, because if we don't make the right laws in the states, then it's all just going to go overseas overnight. So,
Yeah.
did that answer your question?
Yeah. Another question for Voice. Okay. You stock whales from the offering, how do you stock whales from the advertising using the content? Because if I had more money than anybody else, I could start using that. How would you become
That's a good question. Mind if I take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the interesting thing about Voice is the supply starts at 0, and you can only earn it from using the platform. So over time, people could sell their voice. Do you want to sell your voice? No. I think that if there's a high demand for that advertising space, it'll be money in some other person's pocket because they chose to sell their voice.
And it has to be generated within Voice.
Sure, exactly. It has to be generated through use. They're not actually selling them. They're not doing an ICO on the initial voice tokens.
If every Voice is going to have
This is Brian, by the way.
Brian,
EOS Detroit.
I'm on the marketing team. So one of the different things about Voice is everyone has to have an identity. So people can earn Voice, but companies can't. Right? So that's going to be the big thing. By you showing up, you earn Voice. By you contributing, you earn Voice.
Yeah, there's also like a universal basic income aspect to it. Just for having an account on Voice, you're going to get paid every single day.
For logging in.
Just for
How does voice become liquid?
how does it?
Measurable. Like, it means that you have one voice. What does that mean?
Well, you can use that to voice your opinion on certain subjects, or ultimately there will be an internal exchange built in, right? Where
We don't know the details, but theoretically, if it's
Yeah.
a token on EOS, you'll be able to trade it through decentralized exchanges, and people will find
advertisers will be able to buy it from the users. Yeah, that's a really good point.
User is a KYC.
Yeah. Yeah, each user is going to have to submit some kind of government ID to verify themselves.
It's still possible that you could game people you know like that, and that's a real legitimate concern. We haven't seen what they're going to do for KYC yet, so we don't know how robust it'll be or how gameable it is, because you can buy people's identities for $10 in China.
You do that acronym expansion on KYC too?
Yeah, know your customer. So KYC is a type of compliance law that is common in a lot of countries. And so anytime you gotta hook your bank account to like a cryptocurrency exchange or a regular brokerage like E-Trade or something, they'll collect your identity, and KYC is that process. Usually it's taking a picture of like your ID or your passport or something like that.
And Dan Larimer actually had like his own system for kind of verifying your friends and family. So he had something designed where you wouldn't have to submit KYC, but they ended up going in the, block.one ended up going in the direction, or it seems that they're going to go in the KYC direction, just so that they can be compliant with regulations across every different country that they're going to be offering in.
It's the laws holding us back more than anything right now.
Yeah.
Not the technology, unfortunately.
Yep. Yes.
Who are the miners for the voice?
The users.
Yeah, never mind. Yeah.
The users. Yeah. So whoever is actively posting content and getting likes, they're earning it. So that it's not. There's no pre-mine. There's no mining. It's just whoever is using it is going to be earning.
Proof of brain.
Proof of brain.
And that's why we say we want you all to sign up early because there will be a disproportionate more voice tokens going to early users.
Yep.
And if you're coming in later on, so sign up. It's kind of like mining Bitcoin the first time around.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you're working on your own brand, your own blog, your own blog, what I recommend is start saving those up. So by the time it launches, you can just drop them consistently. But it depends how far you're going with it. If you're just doing it for fun, thinking about how you can take some content you've already republished somewhere else and put it back on voice later.
You know what the licensing concerns are for voice, like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, for original content creators?
It's going to be a separate platform. It's not going to be like integrated into Facebook or Instagram.
He's asking, do you
Oh.
own your own content?
If you post a picture on voice, do they have a license for perpetuity?
That's a great.
That's a really good question.
Great open question. I'm not sure about that.
I would assume so they would have something like that built in. It's a good point, but I haven't heard anything.
Basically, he's asking, does block.one own your picture,
Right,
or do you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The marketing would suggest they're trying to be your friend, but they might slip that one in. Who knows? We should check it out.
So, is there a limit? Is it the volume, right? Is there a cap? I mean, is it infinite?
It'll,
How you understand voice? I mean, obviously, to create a value, you have to have some
sure.
number of voices you can do.
Yeah, there's going to be infinite supply.
With the infinite.
Yeah, as long as people are still using it, they're going to be earning it.
So
But-
what usually happens is there's a set rate of inflation that tapers off. So it's infinite supply, but the amount decreases over time so that it eventually is growing very slowly.
Yeah, there's more opportunities to.
So money supply, perpetuity grows. It could, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to be earning more as an early adopter than you would be joining Voice 5 years from now. Correct.
Is there a limited quantity of the EOS coin as Bitcoin?
So EOS started with 1 billion tokens, but there's a set inflation rate. Currently there's a 5% inflation rate, and the token holders can go in there and create a referendum proposal and vote on changing the inflation rate anytime they want to, because it's a self-governed community. But there is 5% inflation, so there's new tokens being created every day. 1% of those tokens goes to the 90 block producers that are getting paid because they're keeping the network online, right?
It's traditional mining. The EOS is traditional.
It's very similar, yeah. Yeah,
Just a very different concept.
yeah. And then the other 4% of EOS inflation gets pooled into a savings fund, which the community would be able to then, the idea being that the community can create proposals and have access to that money for if someone has a good idea of I can provide value by doing X for EOS, ultimately the token holders should vote them in and support the initiative and fund them using the inflation.
There's no hard cap like Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
There's no actual protocol level hard cap. It's just really right now 1% effective inflation over 4 billion tokens. That could be governed by the token holders to decrease it, increase it. It's unlikely we'll see any increases. There is talk about actually reducing that 4%. That's just pooling. In fact, recently, last month I think,
Yeah, they burned it.
it all.
They burned. They had like $180 million worth of just tokens that were being inflated all year, but the community hasn't been able to set up the proper structuring to create an efficient worker proposal system like that. So the community hasn't built it yet. So what we did is we kind of just the community, the token holders voted to burn the money and just erase the tokens from circulation.
One more question. I know we're drilling for your presentation.
It's okay.
But I think this might be interesting to everyone. How was EOS Detroit specifically funded? Does that come out of money from the coin, or is there a foundation or something?
Yeah, we're self-funded, just from personal savings, but we weren't getting paid for up until this December, March. So we went from June of last year until March on our own money, and then we finally started getting paid. And now we're earning these daily block rewards, and that's paying the bills and keeping the lights on.
So getting paid through the block.
From inflation. Yeah.
We also do product development for hire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to learn more about that, I'm giving a talk on that about how EOS Detroit got to where it is at 2 p.m. on Wednesday before the Crypto Cafe. So,
At the Larimer Innovation Society.
yeah, right before the Crypto Cafe.
Sweet.
Real quick, can you talk, you mentioned that they burn the tokens. Can you maybe explain what that means and why it's
Sure.
why it's a benefit relevant?
Thanks. Good question, Brian. So what really happened was the token holders don't actually get a say because we ditched the old constitution. It's the top block producers. So it's a representative. It's more like a republic. The block producers are representatives. 15 out of 21 top block producers agree they can change the system. So what happened was initially we were setting up a referendum system. There was all of this sort of mess because governance is really messy. And basically the initial EOS governance system failed. It was a failed experiment. What happened was a new, more lean kind of governance structure was passed called the EOS User Agreement instead of the EOS Interim Constitution. That gave the block producers the authority to modify the system if they come to agreement without actually polling the token holders in referendum. So that's when we started seeing a lot of things getting done because now 15 out of 21 representatives just had to agree. We didn't have to hold a 3-month referendum to ask all of these token holders who weren't even barely engaged to change some aspect of the system they didn't understand.
Yeah, the original Constitution had a minimum voter requirement for a change to happen. So people were submitting these referendum proposals, but nothing was getting done. Even if something had 99% support, it was still only like a 2% voter turnout, and the Constitution said that it has to be 15%. So nothing was getting done, and then that led to, as he said, the EOS User Agreement.
Again, gridlock. So what actually happened was block producers used their authority, they call it a BP supermajority, to just change the governance. And it created a big, they're not doing it right. They're not doing it by the referendum. But it was ultimately what needed to happen to move the system forward. And I think now we're realizing, oh, we went too far. We do still want to be back more towards the other side. So it's kind of interesting to watch this experiment unfold. Back to Brian's question, though, the block producers chose to burn those tokens because they were sitting there idle, doing nothing, creating what's known as a honeypot, or a target for attack. So if there's $180 million just sitting there, someone might try to figure out, hey, how can I get at that? Whether that's coordinating all of my whale buddies to try to vote in all our own BPs to try to take the money out or something like that. Thankfully, though, the market, it's really expensive to attack EOS like that, because, like we said, you have to have $300 million worth of EOS to even be in slot 74 or whatever we're in, or to vote yourself into that. We have nowhere near that. Personally, it's just other people globally endorsing us. So you'd have to have I don't know, $1 billion in EOS or something to even to be able to vote yourself into the top 21 unilaterally. Hard attack to pull off. Anyway.
So this is pretty exciting. A lot of you have probably heard of Coinbase.com. That's somewhere where you can use your credit card and buy some tokens. So it's a very big brand. That's the most popular place to buy them. But ultimately, I would never recommend leaving your cryptocurrency on either an exchange or Coinbase, because you can actually they have possession of your tokens if you're leaving your tokens with a custodian such as Coinbase or an exchange. But what you can do with the technology using public key cryptography, you can own the keys to your own money. So your private key is essentially like the password to your money. So but anyway, Coinbase is still a big brand. They have a lot of reach, a lot of influence, and so it was cool to see block.one partner with Coinbase. And what they're doing is you can go on Coinbase.com, and I think you go to Coinbase.com/earn/EOS, and you can watch 5 little videos. I think they're only a couple of minutes each, and you can get $10 worth of EOS to learn about it. I think they just started the same thing with Stellar Lumens as well, another learn to earn program. So if you want to, go home and learn more, this is definitely a good place to start. So everybody should have an EOS account. If you want to use these apps, ultimately, step 1 is you have to get an EOS account. It's very easy to do. It takes like 2 minutes to sign up. You download the Token Pocket app. They're a company based in China. They're very cool. Definitely support them, and it's a great app. So you can download this Token Pocket wallet, and then you can store your cryptocurrency in there, and you can own the keys to your own tokens using this. So this is definitely superior to keeping your money on Coinbase or Binance as far as security. I'm sorry? No, there would be a transaction fee if you were sending Bitcoin or Ethereum to a personal wallet, but with EOS it'll be free sending it from Coinbase. You won't even have to use GDAX, I don't think. Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah, you'll be able to just send it from Coinbase to your EOS account, and it'll appear in your token pocket, and then you own the keys to your own cryptocurrency. Yeah. Yeah. So we have these printouts. We'll have them on the table over here. They have a free invite code. Normally it'll cost you like $1 or 99 cents, but today you get them for free. So we'll have the forms in the back. And what you'll want to do is, you'll need an EOS account if you want to start using some of these fun apps like Emanate or EDNA or PixieOS. And the most important thing is that you want to put your private key somewhere safe. I can't emphasize this enough. Key management is so important. It's just the password. It's a private key is just like a password. I'm sorry? All those are unique. Yeah. Yeah. This is a wallet where you can get your free EOS account. And then you could send any EOS tokens, or you could go to Coinbase, earn, and get that free $10 and send it over here. But this is where this is like home base for your crypto, a personal wallet. And you'll be able to go to this middle tab. It's like an Explorer section of the wallet, and you can see all the apps that are integrated into it. It's really cool. It's like an all-in-one app.
I use Abra right now.
Which one?
Abra.
Abra. Yeah, I've heard of Abra. Is there any more slides? So social media, follow us. We have events, usually once a month, and we post the event on Facebook. We post it on Meetup. We're very active on Telegram, on Twitter and Medium, and then Telegram we have like a public group with like 350 people in it, and that's if you ever want to ask us questions, we're there every day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Phil.
Yes, thank you, Ingrid.
Can we give him a round?